Author Shannon Hale and illustrator LeUyen Pham joined us to share about their highly anticipated finale to the best-selling Friends series of graphic novel memoirs. While Real Friends was about bullying and Best Friends was about anxiety, the third book, Friends Forever, tackles the often difficult conversation of preteen and teenage depression. These are true stories of Shannon's middle school years. Take a look. Well, let's talk about the working relationship between a writer and an illustrator now on this third graphic memoir that you've published together.
We have a really good relationship. We're very lucky. So the fact that we're even together, because we live in separate states, we arranged, even though this is a virtual tour this year because of COVID, we still wanted to be together because we love each other so much.
It was an excuse to come out and find her. She's coming to come with me in the second half of the tour in Los Angeles. So.
Oh, I guess I have to go to Los Angeles. Darn it. But these books start with the writing starts first. So with a graphic novel, I write the script, and that can take months and months. And then once I've revised and polished it, and then it goes to her.
Yeah, and I usually do picture books, which are lovely, usually about 3 pages long. And then Shannon dumps, 300 pages this thick on my desk. And I realized, oh my gosh, every single sentence on that manuscript needs to be made into an illustration of sorts.
Graphic novels are a lot of work for illustrators.
They're a lot of work.
A ton of work.
But they're a ton of work for the writers as well, because I think a lot of people have the misconception that the writer writes a couple lines of dialogue and the illustrator fills in all the rest. And good writers don't do that. I'm going to emphasize that. Good writers will actually give a lot of indication of what they want to see in the box.
It's kind of like writing a screenplay.
It's very much like writing a screenplay. And then the approach is like illustrating a screenplay, except that rather than pointing the camera, you're sitting at your drawing table and torturing yourself as you draw every single image.
I'm so sorry.
Well, we also have a copy in our hands as well. Well, let's talk about being the third installment in this series and what kind of that storyline is for those who have already loved the first two.
Well, the third one is about 8th grade. So the Real Friends was
complicated.
Third through 5th grade, and Best Friends was 6th grade. 8th grade is a very transitional year. It's like you're not a kid anymore, but you're barely a teenager. You feel like you're in between. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure. And even just brains are changing so rapidly that you're taking in so much more information. You have an adult brain, but not an adult perspective yet. Mm-hmm. It's very stressful. And on top of that, at the time, I had an undiagnosed anxiety disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. I didn't know the words for that. I didn't know how to explain it. And trying to manage all that with a typical 13-year-old life just sunk me, and I became depressed. It sounds like a riot, doesn't it?
No, it's tackling a lot of issues.
And part of it too is that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Part of it too is that her friends have to interpret her actions as to what's going on with her, and that is part of the title, Friends Forever. Part of it is how do her friends cope with what it is that Shannon's going through, because they don't understand it either. And of course, at that age, you can misinterpret everything. And so Shannon in the story finds herself isolated quite often from her friends simply because they aren't able to understand what it is that she's going through, because she herself doesn't have the words for it.
And I think that's one thing we really hope for the book is it gives kids a chance to see someone else's story and recognize themselves in it and find the words to explain to other people what's going on. Or if they can't find the words, even to be able to show the pictures and say, Mom, Dad, teacher, whoever, this is how I'm feeling. Yeah. And that is really empowering for a kid.
And it gives a lot of chance too to have fantasy. There's a lot of fantasy in here, so it's not all down.
No, I was lived to my imagination. So there's a lot of very elaborate, wonderful, delicious fantasy scenarios that she illustrates beautifully.
Fun moments where I get to just have Shannon doing like silly, ridiculous things and living out her crazy little fantasies. And so it goes back and forth.
One of the fantasies is very much taken from a music video of ZZ Top that the people of the 80s will appreciate.
Yes, please do. Please appreciate that. It was a fun to draw.
Well, the parents, I'm sure they'll enjoy that reference, but I know that's tackling a lot of issues that young people are really facing. How do you see them connecting with graphic novels, maybe different than other stories that are part of kind of their reading curriculum?
Graphic novels are so accessible. what we're seeing and what we hear from research is that kids and teens are more likely to read out of their comfort zone when it's a graphic novel. If you've got a kid that won't read nonfiction, give them a graphic novel nonfiction. If they only read fantasy, you can try realism, because they'll read above their grade level. They're more likely to jump into a book if it's a graphic novel. And also we're seeing graphic novels are just as good for gaining literacy skills as prose novels. And kids who read graphic novels also read more prose novels. They don't just get stuck. All the research shows these are amazing books to get kids reading. And a book like this not only will get them reading, but it can help them develop empathy for other kids who are going through these difficulties. Or if they're going through those difficulties, it helps them see themselves reflected and to feel less alone.
Yeah, I read recently that during COVID, during this lockdown last couple of years, the #1 top-selling genre for young adults and children's were graphic novels. And my guess is going to simply be that it's when you're looking into a graphic novel, you do build a lot of empathy. You're able to read people's faces, and there's a connection that you have that you might not get with prose novels, particularly in a year in which you're only seeing faces on Zoom, on a screen.
When so many of these people have been so literally isolated, then they can open a book and see faces and look into eyes. It makes them feel less alone.
Imagine if you're looking on the Zoom camera and then you can see a dialogue bubble above their heads to see what's going on inside their head. That's what a graphic novel can do for you. There you go.
Well, I love hearing about the creation process, your love for the story, tackling these very pressing issues, as well as just your passion for bringing graphic novels to folks, parents, and young people alike. Thank you so much for sharing your story this morning here with our viewers on Hometown Living.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Well, you can check out your local bookstore for Friends Forever. You can also follow both of them on Instagram. Their Instagram handles are right there up on your screen. Well, there's